Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Break it down with the proper perspective.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing tonight? This is Shabazz, your brother Shabazz, your good to do brother Shabazz, with the proper perspective. How y'all doing tonight? This is it's kind of late. It's kind of late. That's true. I usually try to come online a lot earlier, but it's been a busy day. Been a very busy day, and I had to jump back into the fray, so to speak. So I'm doing a follow-up video. We're doing a follow-up tonight to about the Nottoway plantation that burned down. Yeah, we're going to do just a little bit of follow-up. I'm not going to do a whole lot. But I did a video about this the other day, and I got an amazing response. And several comments. I got a lot of comments, but several really stood out. And I ended up, well, I tried to chat a little bit with the people. And I figured, let me set the record straight. So this follow-up video, we still talking about the praising of the ancestors. We're still talking about the fabulous Ancestor Revenge Day that we just witnessed. Because get back into this thing. But so here we go. So y'all hear the snap, crackle, and pop. That's that Nottoway plantation, and it was on fire. An amazing fire it was. But I am a little bit perturbed by some of the comments that I got. You know, I should have expected some people were upset. I should have expected some people don't like the fact that us black folk are celebrating this tragedy. Now, what I got over here on the side of the screen, y'all see, if you one of those people that be like, you know, well, such and such is invited to the cookout. This is the cookout I'm talking about. This is the only cookout you should be inviting outsiders. If the allies want to come to the cookout, this is the cookout that they come to. Other than that, there should be no more invites given for the cookout. But I digress. So really, I just want to, like I said, I want to get up here and talk about this, talk about the plantation, talk about the fire, the burning and whatnot, and everything that's jumping off. I do appreciate those who watched my last video. And some of the comments I'm going to get into a little bit. I'm going to try to put them on the screen as well. So as I get started in tonight, I was trying to like stall it out a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to see if YouTube is going to send off the notifications like they say they will. And see if anybody is going to join me in the chat room. But apparently it's not working that way, but that's fine. We're going to work it out nonetheless. So peace, family. Peace to everybody. Peace to the positive people in the universe. So we're gathering tonight, not just to talk, but to testify. This is the fire after the fire, so to speak. That's what this conversation is about. This is the fire after the fire. Yes, Nottoway burned. But the story ain't over just yet. And we don't want the story to be over. We don't want the story to end just with the ashes of Nottoway. We want the fire to keep burning, like Capleton says. Because why? Because the ancestors got a whole lot more to say. Now, if you're here, it means you're ready to listen with more than just your ears. You're listening with memory. You're listening with rage, righteous, justifiable rage. And you're listening with reverence. So hopefully, as I get this thing rolling, hopefully I done set it off proper, since this is the proper perspective. Now I'm gonna try to show you a couple of comments that I am gonna focus on tonight. So we got up here this brother right here. Now, please let me say this. I may come off a little harsh. I may come off a little aggressive. I've been told that before. I don't try to. I'm not really doing this in the sense of trying to put down anybody, although I do have some strong feelings in reference to how certain folk respond. But I'm not deliberately trying to put a person down. But I gotta say, I was a little shocked when I read some of these comments. And you can see, now I'm not gonna read all of this, but this one particular brother, MZ Willrich, 7243, he says, the Nottoway plantation was a magnificent piece of architecture. Hold up. Now, this gave me pause. I had to clutch my own pearls. A magnificent piece of architecture. Now, okay, I guess if you are really into architecture, I've been down that path a little bit. I could see how you might drift into this type of thinking. But without context, yeah, you could say that. But context is always key. The devil is in the details. The devil is always in the details. Now, only when it comes to black things, only when it comes to black history, do they try to remove the context. You know, no one would say the ovens in Germany were a magnificent scientific construction, because the context is such that they wouldn't stand for that. But when it comes to something as it relates to black history, African history, they want to remove the context and just admire the building. Nah, we ain't with that. I ain't with that, fam, and I hope you aren't either. So to brother MZ Willrich 7243, yes, I got issues with your comments. Now you can see, and this is on my page, so I'm not strolling and scrolling and trying to troll somebody. This is what he took his time to say about my video. And you can see it's kind of long, but he goes on and on about his visit to the Nottoway plantation with a German friend of his. And he just goes into such great detail about how amazing the facility is, how amazing the facility was. Let us all give a shout out to the fact that it was, and it no longer is. So I'm taking issue. With this, brother. And I got a few choice words that I want to say, because MZ Willrich mentions this magnificent piece of architecture. And I'm like, hold up. The Nottoway plantation, like later on, he what he says, he's trying to be I guess he's to some extent he's trying to be philosophical. So later on in his little comments, he says, in life, when life gives you lemons, you make lemon cake. And I'm like, okay, now granted, I'm not the person that's always I'm not first in line when it comes to being optimistic. I'll grant you that. But I keep saying I'm gonna have to keep going back to this idea of context. The Nottoway plantation wasn't a lemon cake. It wasn't something that somebody made out of being thrown lemons. The facility itself, the construction of it itself, was done in absolute torment. It is a monument to African suffering, to black suffering. Now, he calls it genius. And I'm like, I don't know where this brother from. But let me say this. The genius that you praise, MZ Will Rich 7243, the genius that you praise, you're praising forced labor, not voluntary craftsmanship. Enslaved Africans didn't build it for their legacy. They built it under the lash for a slaver's ego. Now he goes on and talk about his visit. I'm telling you, he's like the sentimental something or another. He mentions Yankee soldiers sparing the plantation over the owner's daughters. A romanticized lie that erases the real reason plantations survived. They survived because they were economic tools for Reconstruction era white supremacy. Period. Point blank. And he goes on and talks about he purchased merchandise, ladies and gentlemen. He purchased pickaninny dolls. The word pickaninny itself steeped in racism, white supremacy. And he's just dropping it like it's a crumb from the lemon cake. He even purchased Confederate cards while he was there. So the madness of this brother participating in this visit, that's one thing. But the capitalism of his participation and of the institution and the facility itself. See, that's why there are so many black people celebrating the destruction of this hideous monument. Because those Confederate cards that he purchased, that they keep selling, they're not homages. The pickaninny dolls that he purchased for his family, that's not an homage to history or Southern history. He's actively supporting financially and spiritually racist caricatures that mock black humanity. That's what he's doing. And I'm like, what kind of education has this person gone through? Like, he does not know, he does not recognize, or is he just clandestine style ignoring the fact that the Confederate flag symbolizes treason? And not just any treason. This is Benedict Arnold on steroids to defend human trafficking, slavery. It's a shame. I would have thought that I would not have thought that this brother, I'm assuming he a brother, the picture that he uses on his profile suggests that he's a brother. And yeah, I know all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but still. Like there's supposed to be some amount of ancestral wisdom that resonates within all of us. So to brother MZ Willrich, the fire wasn't a tragedy. I don't care how much you want to impress upon us about the beauty of the architecture. This fire was justice, long overdue, and finally is here. Ancestors Revenge Day. That's how we should be commemorating this. This belongs on the celebratory calendar. The ancestors don't need you to try to free our enslaved minds. I mean, yeah, we got some enslaved mentalities amongst us walking around today. But the enslaved minds are not the ones celebrating this glorious fire. The enslaved minds might be the ones trying to say that the beautiful architecture is way more valuable than the blood-drenched reality of what went on at the Nottoway plantation. So that's all. That's what I got to say. That's what I got to say to brother MZ Willrich 724843. At least as far as, his comment on my original video. Now, I hope I haven't been too angry black manish. I hope I haven't been too aggressive. That wasn't necessarily the point. That wasn't necessarily the goal. I love this picture though. Y'all see that picture? I love this picture, and you can actually see, that's the cookout. And to that, this is the only thing I will say is,
yo, got the food of people. Catch it up. Yo, let them make them soup. Catch it fire. Yo, I'm gonna on the liar. Catch it fire. Yo, got the food of people. Catch it fire. Yo, got the youth them a look. More fire. Yo, let them make them soup. Catch it fire.
I want to say more fire, catch a fire. Do you know how many? Well, before I go there, let me pull up the next person's comment because that's gonna lead me right on into this next statement I was about to hit with. So as we proceed, and I will give a shout out to all the people in the comments that really recognize what's going on and left valuable statements. The roof is on fire. But I also wanted to, now I don't necessarily know how to take this person's comment, but I got a few choice words about this. So Jocelyn Walker said, can someone please go and research the plantations in Alabama, in Jackson County, close to Stevenson? Never knew they were there until my white boyfriend and I were riding back roads partying. I was like, WTF? Those are plantations. Louisiana isn't the only place that has demons. And the high school is built on an Indian burial ground. Every year, a traumatic, I kind of get what they're saying, but that was all that was left to the thing. So, hey, it is what it is. Now, okay, cool. So that's an interesting comment. I'm not necessarily mad. I don't think this comment is anywhere near as bad as the other brother. But I did look a couple of things up. And I'm like, okay, so here's what I got to say to Jocelyn, or to people who might share that sentiment. Now, before I move forward, let me pause. Everybody on YouTube got to do the little commercial break. So let me just say this. Now, if you're tired of the black facts being swept under the rug, give that like button a nudge. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Because we don't do the tap dancing over here. We keep it 100 every time. That's my commercial, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all like that? So again, now let me move into this whole Jocelyn Walker thing. I'm going to say this. You're right. Louisiana doesn't hold a monopoly on demons. I don't think that's what I was saying. Plantations are everywhere, especially in the South, all over the South. I mean, this is America, and in the memorable words of Tupac, this is America. After all, as a matter of fact, there are 375 plantations or plantation sites all across 19 different states in the South. Now, some of them are publicly owned, some of them are privately owned. But I tell you who don't own any of them. Us. None of them are owned by black people. Not black Americans, not African Americans, not descendants of slaves, not American descendants of slaves, not foundational black Americans. We don't own any of these plantations. Now, there will be some in our community that would say, well, why would we even want to? Well, for one, as I mentioned earlier, they turn these things into heritage tourist sites. They do this for a reason, because there's money involved. Hint, hint, i.e. reparations. Did you know that tourists visit these sites all the time? They've turned the plantation, they've turned the sources, the places, the locales of our blood, sweat, and tears, of our ancestors' enslavement, into wedding centers, into leisure halls, into party places, party palaces. Some would even say it's Disneyland for adults. That's how they sugarcoat our history. That's how they hide and cover up the location's brutal past and the curses of stolen land. Shout out to all the Native Americans. But let's be clear. A traumatic accident, which is what Jocelyn was referring to. When a traumatic accident occurs every year at a location, at a site, in an area, that ain't bad luck. That's spirit. That is the presence of unresolved violence. That is the after effects of colonialism and enslavement. These sites are cursed. Make no doubt about it. These sites are cursed because they are living, breathing monuments to genocide and slavery. And that goes hand in hand whether you're talking about what occurred, what happened to the Native Americans, or what occurred and what happened to the African. The land itself, Mother Nature, the earth, Mama Earth, Like Capleton said, the land itself rebels when they build schools on graves, when they host weddings on whipping posts. Trust and believe. I know y'all heard of Lake Lanier. Go look it up if you haven't. So our celebration, African Americans, foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slavery, Black people's celebration of this monumental spectacle, it's about revealing once again the hidden truths about America. It's about returning stolen land to indigenous nations. This is about centering Black and indigenous sovereignty. Because the demons ain't going to leave until the roots of oppression have been dug up and dealt with properly. Yeah, properly. Y'all feel me? Y'all feel what I'm saying? Is you feeling what I'm putting down? Is you picking up what I'm putting down? Now I'm going to go to another comment. That was Jocelyn Walker. Now, again, like I said, I might come off a little fiery. I'm trying to stay within the realms, within the confines of respectability. And so now this next comment is from Joseph Price. And Joseph Price says, and I kind of, I feel I like this comment. It's sort of what helped me decide, should I do a second video about Nottoway? But Joseph says, my question most likely comes from a place of ignorance. Humility will get you every time. But it's a serious question. So shout out to Joseph Price. Should these old plantations be preserved in their historical context, knowing what that history was? Would it not be a similar sentiment to why places like Dachau, and I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, and Auschwitz, Birkenau are preserved? Isn't the point of preserving history to remind us of the evils of what these, well, again, his comment cut off there. So, okay, I'm like, this is a good question. This, to me, it's almost like, this one really reminds me of a teachable moment. I might use this in the remix. This is a teachable moment. Like I said, humility will get you all kinds of places. So if you're still following me, check this out. So Joseph Price 4095, his question is essentially, should plantations be preserved like Holocaust memorials? Let me fix my chair. Okay. Now, okay. I don't necessarily have a problem with this question. I think this is a good question. But this is what I want to key up on. This is what I want to focus on. This is what I want people to recognize. Because now I covered this in my original video a little bit, but I want to try to go a little bit deeper. If Holocaust sites are preserved to confront historical evils, we got to recognize the difference. So I shouldn't say if, but Holocaust sites are indeed preserved to confront historical evils. Key up on this phrase, confront historical evils. So why not plantations? And I'm asking this question because, again, let it be known, Black people celebrating the burning down of Nottoway Plantation. There is something extremely vital in this, that if you don't understand it, and you want to understand it, this is what you need to recognize. There's a vast difference between the preservation of these 300 and what was it, 75 or 357 plantations here over here in America, and how the Holocaust memorials are maintained, preserved, managed, and etc. Here's the main difference. Holocaust memorials are managed by Jewish communities and descendants of survivors. Holocaust memorials center victim narratives and condemn the perpetrators. I don't have a problem with Holocaust memorials. And in this regard, I dare say most Black people or open-minded Black people would not have a problem with Holocaust memorials because they are managed by the people who were negatively affected. That's not what goes on over here in this country. These plantations are operated by descendants of the enslavers, descendants of the aggressors, descendants of the lawbreakers. Don't come at me like, but it wasn't against the law. I'm not talking about the laws on paper. If you need the paper law to understand the spiritual illegalities of that activity, of that era, something else is wrong with you. But these plantations, Nottoway and the other 375 of them, they're operated by the descendants of the enslavers. Individually, as families, or even, you know how they do. They get around, they get together, they write up all their little paperwork, all their legalese, and they create, formulate, and manage white-owned corporations. And even in that legal world, those corporations are still considered individuals. So we still have some connection to a personality. And what do? They work to deliberately erase Black pain and profit from the trauma. Now, they call it heritage tourism. But what it really is trauma tourism. What it really is capitalism on overload. So when we look at the Nottoway plantation, we know, you should know, it was 150 enslaved Africans who were forced to do this work, all at the behest of John Hampton Randolph, a Confederate who worked in finance, a Confederate financier. And when the going got too hard, when the heat got too unbearable in the kitchen, he fled to Texas. He didn't go alone. He made sure he took all of his enslaved Africans with him. Why? Because he didn't want them to be emancipated. So the same way he evaded, the same way he ducked and dodged, the same way he exploited the enslaved Africans, our ancestors, his descendants, his cousins, his relatives, today are evading the responsibility of owning up to this human tragedy. Today, quite literally, the owner of the Nottoway plantation, attorney Dan Dias, and again, excuse me if I'm saying his name wrong, he calls the Nottoway plantation the cornerstone of tourism. And while we celebrate the destruction of this facility, Let it be known. Let it be clear. He ain't finished. This man has vowed to rebuild. That's how committed he is to making sure he can continue earning a buck off of the trauma tourism that he has been managing. And he admits he ain't an ignorant individual. He admits, well, of course, the site has a checkered past. A checkered past. Imagine somebody saying something about the ovens in Germany being a beautiful work of architecture with a checkered past. This man dismisses the calls for reparations. This man dismisses the calls for descendant ownership. Now, if you want to, and I don't really want to say it this way, but I'm gonna say it anyhow. If you want to look at an actual plantation that's being run, that's being managed today, and it's hard for me to say this, but in the proper way, in the right way, or at least in a step in the right direction, then even right there in Louisiana, you can look at the Whitney Plantation. It's quite literally the only plantation museum explicitly dedicated to centering the enslaved African's story, the narrative of the enslaved African. The Whitney Plantation was founded by a black historian, Dr. Ibrahima Seck. Like I said, step in the right direction. Yet even the Whitney Plantation, or I shouldn't say even, but wouldn't you know it, the Whitney Plantation struggles for what? Funding and visibility. Why? Because it's not owned by the white folk. Because it's not run by the white folk. Because it's not managed by the white folk. Because it doesn't hide the truth. Because it hasn't turned its facility into a wedding site or a party palace. So again, now let's go back. Why am I even talking about this? Don't get lost in the sauce. I'm discussing this because Joseph Price's question was about whether or not we should be preserving. And he makes reference to the Holocaust preservation style, management, attempts, industry. So again, the Holocaust memorials are curated by the oppressed, by the victims. The Holocaust memorials ensure accountability. Yet over here, the vastly overwhelming majority of the plantations, like Nottoway, are curated by the oppressor's legacy, curated for the oppressor's legacy. They just repackaging brutality as Southern charm. Now, I'll give you another example. It's still in the South. It's just not in the Deep South. But it's no coincidence that Trump's executive order takes direct aim at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Because just like the Whitney Plantation, it centers the black narrative. So don't come at me. Don't come on my page. Don't come at black people celebrating the burning of the Nottoway plantation like there's something wrong with us. We know the deal. We know what's up. When you do have a memorial, a museum, when you do have a monument that is rooted in truth and facts, that centers the black facts, everybody wants to take aim. Everybody wants to take shots. And y'all know who the everybody is I'm talking about. In a very real way, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, let's not forget it was opened by Obama in 2016. It is the flagship institution for black narratives. It houses 40,000 artifacts documenting slavery, segregation, resistance. And here we go with Trump. He says it's divisive. The truth is always divisive. He says it's race-centered ideology. You don't think the Nottoway plantation was race-centered ideology? It's just picking a side that they don't like. So yes, we will celebrate African Ancestors Revenge Day. There is no neutrality. If you're too scared to pick a side, like Snoop Dogg said, and I hate to quote him, if you're scared, go to church. While they masquerade their state-sanctioned historical revisionism, we got to deal with the real life, everyday after effects. So again, if you're questioning why we're celebrating, if you're questioning why don't we look at the plantations being preserved the same way we look at the Holocaust museums being preserved, let it be known the Jewish memorials are deemed as educational. Black memorials doing the same education are deemed divisive. The black memorials, be it Whitney, be it the National Museum of African American History and Culture, or just even a curriculum inside the classroom, while our mission is the unvarnished truth, we remain under attack for speaking, fighting for it, delivering, standing up for the unvarnished truth. But again, this is America in a nutshell. So as long as there is going to be a narrative, there's going to be a fight about who controls the narrative. So I'll say this, the Holocaust preservation model, let's call it that. Let's call it a model. The way the Ashkenazi preserve their history should be a model for, to some extent, for all enslaved, colonized groups who have had to deal with this type of thing. Because the goal, the rule, the principle, when you take back the narrative, never let perpetrators, never let their descendants profit from their crimes. So you go over there and you go visit Dachau, you go visit Auschwitz, whatever money you pay to walk into the site or the facility, best believe you're not filling the pockets of Nazis or Nazi descendants or Nazi sympathizers. No, you are giving your financial support to Jewish trusts and their Jewish international consortia because they're committed to making the world remember what happened to them. As of today, That ain't the system being utilized for the plantations of America. Because in America, the plantations are owned by white owners like Dias, who dismiss calls for reparations while monetizing black suffering. They're run by, regulated by, managed by, owned by state governments that prioritize tourism revenue over truth telling. Even Louisiana's lieutenant governor said the destruction of the Nottoway plantation is a gut punch. Yeah, to their fiscal budget and to their revisionist hearts. Wedding planners marketing elegant antebellum venues on land where enslaved children died. But if you bring that up, you always on that black shit. I got a solution for you. If you want us to calm down all that black shit, how about you transfer ownership of the plantations? Want to do that? Want to transfer the ownership of the plantations to black-led historical trusts? Which is a demand that's been echoed by activists like Kenny Pahina, who called Nottoway's fire justice for the ancestors. Until then, preservation without reparations is just colonial nostalgia, as if we need any more of that. So again, like I said, I wanted to get up here and do a follow-up because I had some really rather interesting comments being dropped on my last video about Nottoway. Let me come on back to the full screen. And I feel like I've covered most of the things that I wanted to talk about. And so let me just say this. Peace to all the positive people in the universe. Stay vigilant. Because whether you know it or not, and I've said this before, the ancestors are speaking. They're speaking to us every day. Sometimes they speak to us with signs. Sometimes they speak to us through flames. Sometimes they speak to us through curses and through our collective memory. But no, we are not going to mourn the plantations. We will continue celebrating the plantations. Hopefully we gather around and organize to reclaim these plantations. There should be just as strong a movement to reclaim the ownership of these plantations, or at least the control of the narrative that gets presented at these plantations. But this is your brother Shabazz, breaking it down with the proper perspective. I hope you guys stay strong. I hope you guys hit the like button. If this hits your spirit, in any way, plus or positive or negative. If this hit your spirit, then don't let it end here. Like this video, share this video, speak about this video, drop a comment. The algorithms won't push this truth without your help. So subscribe if you know this is a movement, or if you want this to be a movement, not just a moment. And drop a comment so the ancestors know who's riding with them. Until next time, stay lit. Go burn yourself some sage. And hopefully more plantations will burn down. Y'all feel me? Hopefully, if we can't own them and control them, I hope they all burn down.
Break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. And whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. And whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz break it down with the proper perspective.